Hello, I'm Leslie Sefcik, and in this video I will discuss my research into technology trends for incorporating information and communications technology into the secondary science classroom. The use of mobile devices and internet and communications technology has become commonplace in the educational setting, and this is expected to increase over the coming years. In this video, I will talk about 3 different resources related to integrating ICT into science teaching. First, I will discuss a journal article from ScienceScope that looks at how iPad instrument apps can be used to integrate ICT into secondary science teaching. Second, I will examine a website from the American Association for the Advancement of Science, or the AAAS, which has a variety of resources that are extremely useful to help science teachers integrate ICT into their teaching. Third, I will look at one specific example of using ICT in early secondary science from a video by education.gov.uk. Lastly, I will sum up with main points of my research with concluding remarks. The first resource that I would like to examine is an article by Nancy Heilbronner that was published in the summer of 2014 in ScienceScope. ScienceScope is the American-based National Science Teachers Association's peer-reviewed journal for middle-level and junior high school science teachers. This article examines the usefulness of iPad instrument apps for measuring different parameters in the science classroom. She suggests that new instrument apps may replace costly laboratory equipment and scientific instruments. Heilbronner specifically reviews 10 different instrument apps that she thinks would be particularly useful to science teachers. She selected these 10 apps because they received excellent reviews and they are low cost, and they allow teachers to replace scientific instruments in their science class. Some of the apps that she recommends are a high-definition compass, which could be used for orienteering, a level, which allow your iPad to determine if any surface is level, a thermal camera, which could be used to measure endothermic and exothermic chemical reactions, a decibel meter for measuring sound, a vital signs camera, which can detect changes in breathing and heart rate from a distance, and a stopwatch and timer. These instrument apps allow students to use their iPad in a number of different ways and make some of the equipment commonly used in science labs obsolete. I found this to be the case during my practicum work, where my students were using the stopwatch app on their iPad instead of the stopwatches we had provided them with in the lab, because they were finding them easier to use and more accurate when measuring the speed of the dynamics trolley in a physics experiment. Heilbronner argues that these kinds of apps may help students design their own scientific investigations, and she provides an example investigation using the Decibel app. One possible problem with this technology may arise if teachers rely on students to provide their own laboratory equipment using apps, and students do not bring their iPad to class when necessary. In addition, downloading the apps may take up precious class time, as the process can be slow on school servers. The next resource that I will examine is a website from the AAAS, or the American Association for the Advancement of Science, called Science Netlinks. Science Netlinks provides free standards-aligned resources for K-12 science educators, including lesson plans, interactives, videos, podcasts, reviewed internet resources and apps, and hands-on learning activities. One slight disadvantage of the site is that it is American, so the standards are not aligned directly with the Australian curriculum. Science Netlinks reviews a large range of apps that would be very useful in the science classroom. Today I am going to focus on one of the iPad apps which they link to that I think is particularly useful for secondary science teachers. Click on the collections at the top of the web page and then scroll down to the Science app link. I want to show you one example called iCell that I used with my students when I was on my last practicum teaching experience. Next, click on the iCell app button and it takes you to the launch page. One of the great things about this program is that you can use it on a range of devices such as iPads, smartphones, or computers. Once it loads, you can choose plant, animal, or bacteria cells to examine. This program allows the user to explore the different cell parts and gives the definitions at the basic, intermediate, and advanced levels. There are many more apps to explore on Science Netlinks, so I would recommend that you have a look at the site. The last resource that I will examine is a video published by education.gov.uk. This video looks at creating visual presentations in the science classroom using ICT. This video shows a class of Year 7 science students learning about the particle theory in an engaging way. They are conducting an experiment in groups to test the viscosity of oil at different temperatures and documenting the process using digital cameras. Once the students have completed their experiment and have taken all the photographs that they need of the process, they use comic strip making software to design a comic strip describing the experiment that they conducted and the results that they found. The kids were very engaged in the process, and this worked especially well for children that had low literacy levels and needed differentiated teaching. I think that this idea of documenting the process of scientific investigations with digital cameras or iPad cameras is very useful in the science classroom. In my last practicum, my Year 10 science classes used their iPads to document their investigation of Newton's laws of motion using images and videos, and this worked extremely well. I also think that comic strip making software could be used in a number of different contexts in the science classroom. One disadvantage of this idea is that it may be difficult to source enough digital cameras for a class to use. However, you can work around this by planning ahead, or if you teach at an iPad school, the students would be able to take the photos using their iPads. Overall, I think that this idea would be very useful, so if you have a chance, look at the video. In conclusion, information and communications technology is changing at an unprecedented pace, and science teaching must evolve along with it. In this video, I examined 3 different resources that show us how computer software can be utilized to increase the use of ICT in the science classroom and provide benefits to both students and teachers. I explored Heilbronner's 2014 Science Scope article, which gave us some great tips on the evolution of scientific instruments. Secondly, I examined the AAAS Science Netlink site and specifically looked at iCell. I would recommend taking some time to look at the Science Netlinks because there are many useful resources on the site. Lastly, education.gov.uk provided a great video that has some interesting ideas on exploring science in a fun and interactive way that can be applied to many different science classroom activities. There are minor disadvantages to using the technologies that I have discussed, such as sourcing enough equipment and taking the time to download the apps. However, I believe that the pros greatly outweigh any cons associated with the technology. All 3 of these resources are easy to use, cost-effective, and provide a range of benefits to teachers and students. If you would like to check out these resources for yourself, here are the references. I hope that you have found the information presented in this video useful on your journey as an evolving science teacher. Thank you for watching.